Okay, so bounties aren't something that I really care about. Wait, hold up. I'm making a video on this, so I guess I do care a little bit about it. All right, so bounties aren't something that I care a great deal about. But with everything going on in Wano right now and possible new crew members coming on board, I think it's time that I gave my input. And before we start, if you like the video, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and joining the Discord. But without further ado, let's talk about it. With the Straw Hat Pirates participating in Onigashima with the intention of removing Kaido from Wano and Big Mom being here as well, a lot of the community believes either one or even both of them will be taken down this arc. And with that kind of accomplishment, there has to be some insane bounty increases that comes with it. I mean, just look at what Luffy got just for messing with Big Mom in her territory. Although that may be due to Big News Morgan's giving Luffy's title of the 5th Emperor that hub treatment. Since I think it's likely that Big Mom will continue on until Elbaf, this will mostly focus on the accomplishments coming from beating the Beast Pirates, but just like in Whole Cake Island, her reputation will be tarnished and credit will be given to those responsible. And with how weirdly inconsistent bounty increases are in the series, I think it's a bit hard to know exactly how much of an increase some characters will get, especially following Dressrosa when Luffy got an additional 100 million for beating Doflamingo, a warlord. But after beating someone like Crocodile as a rookie, he only received a 30 million increase. But that also may be due to the government wanting to cover up the incident and giving Smoker most of the credit. And I guess the argument could be made that the government didn't want to lose faith with the public by letting it be known that an unknown rookie took down one of the government appointed pirates. But even with that, looking back to Dressrosa, it's still a bit inconsistent to me as why, along with Luffy's bounty increase, crew members like Nami, Robin, Frankie, and Brooke got a 50 million increase, and the likes of Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, and Chopper were given more or less due to special accomplishments, certain circumstances, or in Chopper's case, just a gag. But after Whole Cake Island, Luffy received a 1 billion increase for going directly into an emperor's house, beating her strongest member, and being given sole credit for being the ringleader in the assassination attempt on Big Mom's life. Arguably a greater accomplishment than the events of Dressrosa, given what we know about the emperors and how hard it is to even see one of them in person, let alone fight them. So why is it that none of the other crew members aside from Sanji got an increase? Not even the ones that participated in the event or having special showing like Brooke. Or hell, even Carrot, which if she is being built up to join the crew, this would have been a real nice way to introduce her first bounty. But I digress. Let's talk about the increases. With CP0 here as spectators for the most part, I think we can expect decent bounty increases for everyone involved. And since Law's crew is involved, it's reasonable to believe that they'd all get something of a bounty boost post-war. I don't even think it'll be mentioned how much of an increase they got or that it'll even matter. But I like the Heart Pirates, damn it, and I think it'd be real disrespectful not to mention them in this. Seeing as how their captain is currently in the middle of fighting Big Mom and displaying a real capacity for actually winning alongside Eustace Kid, I don't think that CP0 will let that go unnoticed. But like I said, we will be operating under the assumption that Big Mom is going to make it out of this arc and move on to Elbaf. But again, not without a huge smudge on her status as an emperor. So with Law's current bounty of 500 million, his increase due to forming an alliance with the Kid Pirates, while in an active alliance with the Straw Hats to take down Kaido, participating in the War of Wano to remove Kaido from power, and defeating, quote unquote, the Emperor Big Mom alongside Eustace Kid, I'm going to place Law's new bounty at somewhere between 1 and 1.8 billion, with my serious expectation of it being at somewhere around 1.4. His goals aren't to throw the world into chaos or even find the One Piece. They started out as simply getting revenge on Doflamingo, which he wasn't expected to survive. But now that he did, those goals have shifted to simply learning the secrets of the world as well as the Void Century and what the initial D stands for. Unlike his two contemporaries who are actively seeking the treasure that is said to start a massive world war. I also believe that there'll be some hidden inflation from CP0, knowing he has information on the poneglyphs should he find a way to read them. Next, let's look at Killer. With a last known bounty of 200 million, I think he's due for a massive boost. I don't think that Killer will break 1 billion, but I do believe his bounty will be super inflated due to him being on the crew whose captain's actions I'll address when we talk about Kid. And with that in mind, I'm predicting Killer's new bounty will be worth somewhere between the 8 and 900 million range, with my safe bet being the former 800 million. For forming an alliance with the Heart Pirates and the Straw Hat Pirates with the intention of taking down Kaido, participating in the war to remove Kaido from power, and for defeating the supernova Basil Hawkins, with his bounty going from 2 to 500 for beating Basil Hawkins, whose bounty was 320 million, another 100 for being in the alliance participating in the war, and finally the last 200 for the inflation due to his association with Kid. That association essentially being the vice captain of the Kid Pirates. Speaking of whom has a last known bounty of 470 million, with his accomplishments in the war being forming an alliance with the Heart and Straw Hat Pirates with the intention to take down Kaido, defeating quote unquote the supernova headliner and former ally Scratchman Apu, participating in the war to remove Kaido from power, and defeating the Emperor Big Mom alongside Trafalgar Law. Okay, so with Kaido's record of defeats, being captured, and well, his attempted executions that ultimately failed, he can't be captured by the Marines and simply thrown into prison and never to be heard from again. He needs to be removed from the picture permanently. And given what we know about the Emperors from the Ace novel, with them having the tendency to pursue and exterminate anyone who challenges them with extreme prejudice, also given Big Mom's display of chasing the Straw Hats, it's not hard to believe this as fact even though it came from a novel, which a lot of people don't tend to take as canon. Kaido won't fall into the same trap as previous villains that Luffy defeated. He doesn't kill because when they're defeated, they lose the will to fight and their views are changed. Or something to that extent, I'm paraphrasing. But with all that in mind, I do believe the person who will commit Kaido to his not alive status anymore will be Eustace Kid. With quotes from Oda that he came up with the majority of the supernovas on the fly, with Kid being the only one he had actual long-term plans for, I think it's unlikely that those plans have actually changed. Kaido's dream is to start a world war, the likes that no one has ever seen, and have a grand and glorious death. It'd be fitting if Kaido was denied the death at the hands of Luffy, the one who ultimately defeats him and he considers an worthy opponent, and in turn have Kid, someone Kaido feels is unworthy of giving him the death that he craves, actually kill him, all while giving Kid the credit he needs to continue the story as well as his revenge. And so with all that going for him, it's not impossible to believe that Kid will get an almost absurd increase similar to how Luffy got in Whole Cake Island, which is why I'm thinking Kid's new bounty to be somewhere at the 2 billion mark for his achievements during the war, but mostly due to him being responsible for ultimately killing Kaido and throwing the current world powers into permanent chaos. With Kaido's territory up for grabs, it'll be like when Whitebeard died and pirates began running amok, but this time we're able to witness the chaos firsthand. So I do believe the more relevant members of Kid's crew will get a bounty increase, but who really cares about Heat and Wire? And I know there's been discussion about the possibility of Ulti and Page 1 joining Kid's crew, but I don't see that as likely as, say, Yamato or even Carrot. So I won't be including them in these bounty increases, but I do like the discussion where the Beast Pirates will end up if they all aren't arrested. I mean, some of them even used to be captains of their own crews, and with Kaido gone, maybe they regain the passion to continue on their journey. Now moving on to the Straw Hats, I believe this is where the entirety of the crew may get a 100 million increase just for being part of the crew whose captain defeated one of the 4 emperors, similar to how everyone got a 50 million increase in Dressrosa for taking out Doflamingo. But also the rules of bounties will start to take hold since these are the main characters and we focus on them more than anybody else and their accomplishments and can't just artificially create their strength with the number of their bounty. Starting with the latest addition of the crew, Jinbei, since his current bounty is already 438 million, and again, he stated bounties don't tend to go up past 300 million. So for betraying Big Mom at the start of Whole Cake Island, joining the Straw Hat Pirates and the Alliance to take out Kaido, and defeating one of the Flying Six, that being Who's Who, he's likely to be at about 738 million. Accounting for the 100 million increase for being a part of the Straw Hats, an additional 50 for participating in the war, and the final 150 for the importance that CP0 puts on Who's Who. Now, looking at those who took out the other Flying Six members, starting with Frankie, whose bounty is currently at a measly 94 million for participating in the war and taking out a member of the Flying Six, that being Sasaki. I think Frankie will finally get his wish of breaking the 100 million milestone with at least 269 million. With the 100 million Straw Hat War participant increase, another 25 million for beating Sasaki, and another inflated 50 million for CP0 witnessing the Vegapunk tech that Frankie has been flaunting all over Onigashima, something no one outside the world government should have. And since not only was it developed from an Admiral's Devil Fruit, but they put the same tech in the Pacifistas for the very reason of taking out the pirate that now has it. Moving on to Robin and Brooke, starting with the latter's bounty of 83 million, I don't see him getting much of an increase outside of the initial 100 million for the Straw Hat involvement in the war. And should he receive any additional increase, it'll come from his assisting Robin in taking out Black Maria, or from his involvement in Whole Cake Island, since the Straw Hats involved still haven't received any recognition for their time there outside of Luffy and Sanji. So, Brooke may sit comfortably either at 180 or 220 million. Meanwhile, Robin, with her 130 million, may bump up to somewhere around 300 million, given the importance the higher-ups of the world government put on her capture and for defeating Black Maria. Now on the lesser participants in the war, in a manner of speaking, of course, because Chopper did help cure the Ice Oni virus, and Nami, along with the help of Usopp, did help to keep Tama safe after she converted a lot of the gifters onto their side. So starting with Chopper, I think his bounty is still going to be somewhat of a joke, but still gets some sort of recognition, since CP0 likely saw the pet of the crew turn into a giant monster and tussle with Queen for a good 30 minutes, even if Queen was laughing and mocking Chopper's efforts the entire time. So while some people in the community will probably keep him down by dropping him 1,000 berries as a bounty, this is still a pet that helped take out an Emperor of the Sea, so I'll give the man a solid 2 million just out of respect. As for Nami and Usopp, since they spent a large portion of the war together guarding Tama, I think they'd receive equal credit for the accomplishments done. Even though Big Mom is the one mostly responsible for taking out Page 1 and Ulti, I do believe they'd be given credit for it at least. Meaning their bounties of 66 million and 200 million would go up by 100 million for their membership in the Straw Hats and the participation in the war, an additional 25 million for each Flying Six member defeated, putting Nami at 216 million and Usopp up to 350 million. And now we have the monsters of the crew. Those who are responsible for putting an end to the upper echelons of the Beast Pirates, those monsters being Zoro and Sanji. So let's start with Curly Brow at 330 million. And again, even though it was stated that bounties don't tend to go up much after 300 million, special achievements are the exception to this. And beating a second commander worth more than $1 billion definitely qualifies as a special achievement. So while I'm not sure how to put a specific value on beating someone like a top commander of a Yonko's crew, especially when they're worth more than $1 billion berries in bounty. And yes, I do know Luffy's bounty did triple after beating Katakuri and Whole Cake Island. That increase mostly came from a number of things he did during that arc. Beating Cracker, Katakuri, invading Big Mom's territory, and being given sole credit as the mastermind behind the assassination attempt on Big Mom's life. I don't think that Sanji will break $1 billion just yet, so for being part of the Straw Hats, the importance the world government puts on the MAD/Germa tech and research, now that his only alive bounty has been rescinded, taking out Queen, a former member of the MAD science group and commander in the Beast Pirates, my bet is Sanji's new bounty being set somewhere between 8 and 900 million. Or if Oda wanted to continue the running gag with Sanji having some kind of problem with his bounty poster, I could also see his bounty only going up to about 666 million, keeping with his devil motif and making him furious that his bounty is only doubled after beating someone like Queen. Further infuriating him, seeing as how prideful he was and his bounty finally being more than Zoro's. Speaking of which, I may be letting my bias leak out here a little bit, but I'll do my best to contain. So being one of only 2 supernovas who aren't captains, both of whom were present on the rooftop and showing real might when facing against Kaido. The biggest difference between the two is Zoro was able to do to Kaido what only one person has been able to do, that being Odin in scarring him, While even though Zoro's attack wasn't enough to phase Kaido, it's still enough to make a note of, since the last person to do so, again, that being Oden, was one of the key reasons in why Akainu and Sengoku were hesitant on sending Marines to Wano, them not knowing if he was still alive to oppose them or not. And with that in mind, CP0 would have to factor that in when making a report. Take that, coupled with the fact that he beat King, Kaido's strongest and most trusted man, a member of the Lunarian tribe, a fact that I think will be made known to CP0 if they already don't know. Zoro, in my attempted unbiased opinion, would be given the bounty something with the range of 1 to 1.2 billion, with his accomplishments against Kaido being the thing that pushed him over the 1 billion mark. With my biggest reason for Zoro even breaking the 1 billion mark is how similar his accomplishments are to Luffy in Whole Cake Island. Be the first commander? Check. Messed with an emperor to the point they recognize them as a massive threat? Check. The only thing missing for Zoro is him beating another commander and being given credit by the big news media. Looking at Luffy and how he went from 500 million to 1.5 billion just for participating and conspiring to take down an emperor, actively participating in the actual removal of an emperor is an accomplishment worthy of an increase to put him at the bare minimum of an emperor's bounty. And with Blackbeard being at 2.2 billion for taking out Whitebeard, freeing the prisoners and Impel Down, beating a first commander with the remaining Whitebeard pirates in the Payback War, and taking up the territory, all things Luffy has been doing since he entered the New World, given the presumed ending to Onigashima with Kaido being defeated and killed, with Big Mom leaving Wano and going to Elbaf, with her reputation as an emperor further being tarnished by the Straw Hats and the alliances they formed, and Kid being the one I believe to ultimately kill Kaido, but Luffy being the one to actually defeat him, I'm predicting Luffy's bounty to go from 1.5 billion to either a solid 2 or 2.5 billion, placing him either right below or above Blackbeard, with the differences being whether or not you believe Blackbeard will get another increase in bounty before he and Luffy actually face off. The majority of this increase will obviously come from him defeating Kaido, but also taking up Wano as a territory and being given sole responsibility for the world government not being able to establish their rule in the country. This being important because it's a point of interest that the world government has shown extreme interest in. Also for forming an alliance with the Samurai of Wano, the Heart Pirates, and the Kid Pirates that overthrew one of the current world powers, captaining the crew of people who he led to being the main pillar of said alliance, as well as being given some kind of credit for all the accomplishments his crew has achieved over the course of this arc, seeing as how without the captain, there can be no crew. So putting a large bounty on the man responsible for the chaos that'll be taking over the world seems about right now that history is kind of sort of repeating itself in the same way when Blackbeard took power. Again, taking out an emperor, first commander including the emperor's crew, and taking the emperor's territory. And again, I think it'd be justified in a crazy increase in bounty, especially since Blackbeard is an emperor with a bounty of 2.2 billion. Now, lastly, I want to give my input on the potential bounties for possible new crew members like Tama, Toko, Momo, and even Yamato, as well as the bounty for the possibility of Vivi returning following the events of the Reverie. And just to get it out of the way, I don't think that any of the kids will get a bounty should they join. Momo was only really seen as a dragon, and if he were to join, I think he'd have the chopper effect. That being, no one knows he was actually the dragon. And if he does in fact look exactly like Oden, his appearance may be shown to the world, making everyone believe Oden is still alive. And if he reverts to his former child self, the ghost of Oden would be given the credit for saving the capital while Momo is left as the heir to Wano. Which that in and of itself may be worth a bounty, but I don't think the world government will give a bounty to someone just for being a royal of an independent nation. And Tama and Toko really haven't done anything to make themselves enemies of the world government, so I don't really see why they would be given a bounty. But Princess Vivi, on the other hand, isn't just a royal. She's the princess of a country whose king brought to light the topic of the Void Century and the Poneglyphs at the Reverie, the most important meeting in the world, something the Gorosei absolutely would not tolerate. And given Imu's interest in Vivi and the Gorosei's divine worship of him, I think following the Reverie, where the failed assassination attempt could have been Vivi herself, and with Wapol reporting something to Big News Morgans, which is likely him outing Vivi as a member of the Straw Hat Pirates because he's still pissed they removed him from Drum Kingdom and still hating the Nefertaris because he's just petty like that. She may be given a bounty to reflect that. Framed as a pirate infiltrating the world government, framed for conspiring to kill King Cobra for the throne, since it'd be suspicious if Cobra mysteriously died following the events of the Reverie, especially since he brought up a topic that the world government wants to keep on the hush. So taking that into account, I could see Vivi's first bounty being something like 300 million. And now that I'm thinking about it, Vivi is technically one of the Celestial Dragons, one of the 20 families who founded the world government. Given Doflamingo's pull in the world, even though he wasn't a Celestial Dragon anymore, having her on the crew of the now new Emperor, I think Vivi would be justified in having a 300 million berry bounty. And now lastly, the big one that I've seen discussed the most recently is Yamato. Now, I have to disagree with the notion that she'll get at least 1 billion for her first bounty, even if she is the child of Kaido. Ace, being the son of the Pirate King, was only given a bounty of 550 million, and that's after his achievements as the captain of the Spade Pirates, and still didn't get much of an increase after becoming the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates. And speaking of Whitebeard, Weevil, who is the self-proclaimed son of Whitebeard, the world's strongest man, is only at 480 million before it was frozen. And that's after his strength was compared to that of a young Whitebeard and his rampage through the Whitebeard allies. So to think that Yamato would not only get a bounty of 1 billion, but her first bounty be double of what the Pirate King's child was at the height of his pirate career seems a bit excessive to me. So keeping that in mind, Yamato's bounty, in my honest opinion, would be something like 500 million or 600 million. 200 million for joining the Straw Hats and conspiring to take out Kaido. A super inflated 300 million for being the child of Kaido, and an additional 100 million for being a member of a rare race that the world government may not want gaining power, similar to how they want King for his link to the Lunarians. And with that, that's it. Those are my predictions for the bounties of the Straw Hats, allies, and possible new crew members post-Wano. If you have your own predictions, you can leave them in the comments below, join the Discord, and sub to the channel to know when we start streaming chapter discussions and upload new videos. And with that, have a good one. Now, I know someone's going to say, oh, what about Carrot? She's a possible crew member. We don't talk about Carrot here, so stop. She's not worth recognizing.